Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. This one, we're going to be taking a look at an updated list for Kayo, Armed, and Dangerous. I haven't made a Kayo video since the release of the Kayo Armory deck that brought him Savage Sash, so this will be a list that plays the, I guess really not even new anymore, chess piece because it's been a while since that deck actually did come out. But with all that, let's get started. Starting with the hero. Kayo is a hero that has a lot of text on him, so we'll run through him a little quick. Kayo only has one weapon zone, which means you're only able to equip a singular one-handed weapon or an offhand equipment. There's only one weapon in the deck, so we'll be running it all of the time. Your attack action cards you own in zones that aren't the combat chain have +1 power. This allows for Kayo to play a lot of blue 5 power attacks or some other 5 power attacks that will go up to 6 and allow you to discard them to KO's, or I guess just the brute card suite. And then KO's last ability is the first time you discard a card of 6 or more power during your action phase, you create a might token. This will let KO get 1 extra power every turn as long as he's discarding at least 1 6 power every turn, which in general you're going to be doing. The weapon we're playing is Mandible Claw. This is just a 2 for 3, but if we've discarded 6, it has go again. Good on our wider turns, since on our wider turns we're going to be discarding a card. The equipment is pretty basic. Scowling Flesh Bag is just one of the best headpieces in the game, and since we're a brute we get to play it. On Defend we get an Intimidate, which will help us immensely against aggressive matchups, since a key Intimidate could just disrupt their whole turn, or against a deck that we think is going to run Pummel or other similar attack reactions like New, this could just shut down their whole playline by getting rid of a key attack reaction. Savage Sash is the brand new chess piece from the Kayo Armory deck. It is 2 block with Temper, although we're only going to be blocking with it once since we're going to be trying to activate the ability. It is an action to destroy it, and all of your attacks with 6 or more power have -1 cost this turn, and then it is go again. So this is going to be activated on turns we can have like just a really wide turn. If we can get like runner into a go again effect into like a claw into another attack would be great. Even if we can just use it to get 3 attacks off, even just claw included on like a blood rush turn, blood rush, pop this, play something with go again, claw into something else, it's generally good enough, and it makes Savage Sash incredibly strong card for the deck. Apex Bonebreaker is for turns that we want to be blocking a little more. It just lets us make a might token when we defend with a 6 or more power card alongside it. And then Scabskin Leathers, because they're the just 3 block brute shoe that brutes just play because they're 3 health. Looking at some of our extra equipment we have in our sideboard, Skullhorn and Nullrune Boots are for our arcane matchups. You're generally never rolling Scabskin Leathers, so the Nullrune Boots is the better choice, considering that Apex Bonebreaker has advantage when blocking, when Scabs doesn't do anything unique when blocking. And we have Spellfray Gloves for the Wizard matchup, same as the Skullhorn rolling, and we bringing that in, versus Wizards, so we can prevent a lot of damage. And into Rune Blades, we'll bring in the Nullrune Boots, just so we can at least have one AB. Looking at the main board of the deck, we are playing 22 blues. Blues are kind of the main idea of KO, where the other brutes have to play non-attack actions that sometimes do stuff. There's a lot of non-attack actions they've printed pretty recently that you are fine playing in blue. Things like Smashback Ailhorn, Blue Barraging, those types of cards. But KO gets to just play all attacks all the time. So we have pretty much just all attacks all the time. Blue Assault and Battery gives us an agility token on some of our off turns to set up for bigger turns. This version of the deck is one that can play either way you play KO. There's 2 main ways to play: a slower agility token based deck and a very not blocking, just full aggro version of the deck. A lot of those cards are in the sideboard, and a lot of the agility cards are up here in the main board, just because you'll bring them in most of the time. Assault and Battery is good in both, just because the agility can help you either way. You can throw like a CNC for 7 to start a turn, and then come in with some other attacks after. Pat Call lets you check the top card of your deck if you have something like a Beast Within you're going to be discarding, or playing one of your draw discard effects. You want to make sure there's a 6 on top, so if you do need to defend with a card, this will be a good one to do that with. Riled Up, in case you have to play a blue, is just a decent blue to play since it'll get +1 if you've discarded a 6. Run Roughshod is a card also from the Kayo Armory deck. This is just a 1 for 5, but you can only play it if you've discarded a 6, which generally isn't going to be too difficult. This is a great one to have on your wider turns, since it can just be an easy card to play out if you only have one resource floating. And then Smash Instinct is an Intimidate, so it's just pretty good to have versus some of those matchups later to get an extra card out of their hand if you can ever do a 2-attack turn really late game. If this is your second attack, it's pretty much just game over. And then we're playing our windups. 3 blue agile windup. We're also on 3 yellow just because these make an agility token on discard, which is really important. The blue is very good since it's also a 6 at blue. And then Mighty, for a similar reason, just makes a Might token instead. Turns on Kayo, activates or turns on your Mandible Claw, triggers the Kayo Might token, even lets you like play a Run Roughshod or pump up a Riled Up. And then 1 Reckless Swing main board. We have 1 more on the sideboard. That'll usually only come in versus something like Enigma, but Reckless Swing is a card that Kayo really loves, even though it can mess him up sometimes. It's something that if you can get late game, it can just win you a game straight out. 1 blue that we're not playing is Reincarnate. Originally, I was on a lot more blues, but I tended to have turns where I drew a large amount of them, and my turns were a little weaker, so I'm down on 22 blues main board for now, but you could play Reincarnates instead of probably either Riled Up or Smash Instinct. I think Assault and Battery, Run Roughshod, and windups are super important. You might be able to cut down Pat Call too, but I tend to like this one. Moving on to just like the meat of the deck, the best card in the deck is of course Bloodrush Bellow. This is just the best brute card in the game. It's a 1-cost action that has you discard a random card. It gives all of your brute attacks +2, and if you've discarded a 6, you'll draw 2 and Bloodrush will gain go again. This turns on your Claw, lets it come in for 5, gives you a Might token with KO for your next turn, and then it just lets you go incredibly wide. This is pretty much the reason why they gave KO the restriction, other than the fact that he actually only has 1 arm, but why, he only has 1 weapon slot, because if an aggressive deck like this that just gets to play a large amount of blues had access to 2 Mandible Claws, you would just so consistently get the double claw into an attack that it would just be insane. And since you get to play so many blue playable attacks, this card is always live and it's always going to be insanely powerful. Beast Within is very similar. In my Rhinar list, I've started cutting Beast Within because this card always hits non-attacks like crazy. But in a deck like this, where you're only playing 4 non-attacks main board, maybe up to 7 max, I guess, this card is very uncommon to hit a non-attack, and even if it does, it's just 1, which does suck because they're very strong in this deck, but it's very often you'll just pay 1 life, draw another attack, and this card will be incredibly strong. The last yellow, since I went over 2 of the yellows, just again, the yellow agile windup, because 3 for 6 is pretty nice. It's a yellow, it's pitchable. Most of the time you're discarding it, but you can always just play it. Looking at the reds are pretty important. Clash of Agility is here because a lot of our attacks benefit from that go again. it does let you check the top card of your deck. Of course, it sucks if it's a non-attack because you might be giving your opponent an agility token, but if you can make that agility, you'll know, like, if you play like a Savage Feast with that agility, you're drawing an attack you can probably play right after. If your hand is like Clash of Agility, Savage Feast, a blue, and another 6, and you clash and you have like a swing big on top, your turn can be swing big into, or Savage Feast into swing big, and that's just a really strong turn. CNC is really, really good in KO because of the might tokens. You let CNC come in for a 2 for 7, which is miles better than a 2 for 6. D-Reacts can't block those breakpoints, so your opponent will either have to spend an extra card or an equipment, or just straight lose their arsenal. Enlightened Strike is really strong with agility tokens since you can pick the draw a card mode and just replace the card you bottomed and have 0 for 5 go again always. Not the best thing we can be doing with the agility, but it is the third best thing. What I would argue is the best thing is Runner Runner. This is a 2 for 6 that if it has go again, we make another agility. The only way we can give it go again is with agilities, so it just lets us extend it to another turn. This is how we'll be just rolling turn after turn on go again, just really big, powerful turns. Again, I already talked about Savage Feast, just a good card in agility-based KO lists, a 1 for 6 that just replaces itself. Of course, we do need to discard, but you're playing Brute, that's just, most cards do that. Swing Big's just really big and powerful, 2 for 8. I don't see a reason why a Brute deck wouldn't play this card. It's just immensely strong. Its downside is alleviated in a lot of situations because an opponent blocking with a lot of cards won't be able to use the Quicken to Great effect, and if they're just passing their next turn, that can usually be pretty good for you. It's a little bad into decks that have a lot of armor, mainly Guardian, because they can just get a free Quicken and get a wider turn, but then you're getting all of their armor, so that can generally be pretty good for you. And then the last attack in the main board is 2 of Pack Hunt, because it's just a 2 for 6 Intimidate. Again, on bigger turns or late game situations, very strong, similar to Smash Instinct. If you'll notice, this deck has a 51 card main board, which means we're bringing in 9 cards pretty much every game. So let's talk about the board. Cast Bones is a card that is not main board because there are a lot of matchups you don't bring it in. Into matchups where I'm bringing in all of my draw discards, I tend to not bring in Cast Bones. With one, it's fine. Normally, in a lot of matchups, you'll bring in either one of Bare Fang's Pulping Wild Ride, but in matchups you bring in multiples, I just tend to not go for the Cast Bones since you're not really playing the agility idea anymore. Cast Bones lets you reveal the top 6. You make a might for each 6 cost, or each 6 power card revealed. If you have 6 might, you make an agility. Pretty much most of the time you'll hit 6. If you do end up hitting a non-attack, that's fine. You're still getting, 5 mites on average. And then on your turn, even if you have the block, you still get +5. So this card just incredibly strong, really good early, really good to get it off, then block with equipment, and then have a massive turn going in at your opponent. This card is like one of the reasons why KO was incredibly strong out of the gate. Bare Fangs, Pulping, Wild Ride, all very similar. All of them have an on attack to draw and discard. These are the best of them. There are, I think, 2 more with a effect like it that just aren't good, but these ones are generally the best. Bare Fangs can be a 2 for 8, also makes you your might if you discard it a 6. Pulping gets Dominate and go again if they don't defend with 2 cards, which is generally always if it has Dominate unless they have a de-reacted arsenal. And then Wild Ride just gets base go again. There are different matchups you want each of these different. There's different matchups you want to bring in each of these. Some matchups you bring in all of them. Some matchups you bring in like Bare Fangs, or you bring in Pulping or Wild Ride. So, different matchups for each of them. Again, sometimes you bring in all of them. The Weakest Link is an incredibly strong disruptive card out of Part the Mistveil. It is mainly brought in versus the Mystic Heroes since they play a lot of cards that don't block, but it's also really good in the Brute Mirror. Mainly the KO Mirror since they also play a lot of no blocks. It's just a good disruptive card that can just mess up their turns, and it replaces itself so you'll get an arsenal. Great on cast bend turns as well, because your opponent will have to block it all out, and then you get to go in with stuff after, or they don't block it, they take a massive amount of damage, and then they lose a card in their hand. Sem packing, more arsenal disruption. Very good, similar to the CNC, but if they have a D-React in hand, they can block the breakpoint, so it's a little worse. Just good into the matchups you want to be disrupting their arsenal. Really strong card. I wouldn't play Brute decks without this one either, but it is a card you can definitely just have in the board instead of always bringing it in. 2 No Fears. This is mainly for matchups that we really realistically want to be blocking, but we really want our full hand. Not so much a matchup like Kano, because into Kano, if we No Fear one thing, they just kill us through the No Fear. Like, sure, we block their Wildfire, we're still going to take 10. It's still going to be a bigger turn for them. So into Kano, this card isn't as good. This is mainly for a matchup like Azalea, because Azalea has one big arrow with a strong disruptive effect. If it's an arrow that, you know, might limit us a little, like Remorseless, we want to block as much damage as possible, but we still want our strong offense. We can play a No Fear, show our opponent our hand, and just prevent 6, and then go into our turn and just play 3 attacks or play 2 attacks and just have that strong offense back. That's really what No Fear is for. And then a second Reckless Swing is really just for the Enigma matchup, because this card lets you win that matchup really easily. It lets you blow up some of their Spectra auras while they're attacking with them, just straight end their turn. Lets you break their board if they set up on you, because you'll make them lose some of the things on their board. Be a little more careful. A lot of the time, if they see you pitch a Reckless Swing, they're just going to set up their board and kill you almost immediately, because now they have no fear of it. But if you have a second one, you can get them whenever you draw it. So that's going to be the whole KO list. I think KO is pretty strong in this format. I don't think he's the strongest aggro deck, but he definitely has a lot of power into the decks that are designed to beat Zen, because those decks, they can beat aggro by blocking just a wide amount, but the problem is when you play into KO, they not only have to worry about blocking wide, but also blocking tall, so you can easily get damage through decks like Victor, decks like Nu. KO can work great against. Into a deck like Nu, you do have to worry about her hero ability playing some of your blues, because they are pretty strong, but into a deck like Victor, you can just shred through them because they have to block tall and wide, and that's really hard to do, even for a deck like Victor. So you'll be able to chip them down, get them to a point where they have to use their armor, and after they use their armor, you're just one power turn away from just blowing them out. So with all that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Not sure what we're going to be doing next week. I'm sure I'll find something. But yeah, I'll see y'all in the next one. Have a good one.